Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brennan Lafferty, the publisher of Plastics News. Welcome to the 2020 Women Breaking the Mold Networking Forum, organized by Plastics News. I hope you've been enjoying this week that we've devoted to women in manufacturing and in the plastics industry. And I welcome you to the final session of our jam-packed week. I hope you've been able to witness the 14 sessions we've presented this week. If not, fear not. Recordings are available to view at your leisure on our website, plasticsnews.com. And thank you to the more than 500 of you who registered to attend this event. Now let's get ready for two special final moments of this event. First, you'll meet 4 members of our latest class of Women Breaking the Mold inductees. We'll hear what made this quartet successful and much more. After our discussion, we'll present a 5-minute video acknowledging the entire class of inductees. All right, let's meet our 4 panelists who are, as I said, also members of our 2020 Women Breaking the Mold class. First, let's start with Dawn Bielman. Dawn is Senior Vice President and CFO at Precision Custom Products. Dawn, please take a minute or two to talk about yourself and your company.
Thank you, Brennan. Good afternoon. Again, I work at Precision Custom Products. I've been here for 35 years. Precision Custom Products was founded in 1976, and we are located in Midwest rural Ohio. We are a custom plastic injection molder specializing in short runs and high tolerance molding. And we serve industries across many areas, across many states and globally, specializing basically in aerospace and retail product equipment. And again, I'm pleased to be here. Thank you, Brennan.
All right, thank you, Dawn. Next is kind of my neighbor, Jane Clausen-Palfy. Jane is Director of Operations at MMI Engineered Solutions. Jane, tell us about MMI and what you do there.
MMI is a custom molder here in Saline, Michigan. Our facility here in Saline is 155,000 square feet. Our second facility in Warren, Michigan is an additional 80,000 square feet, recently opened. And our third facility in Monterrey, Mexico is 70,000 square feet. Our products range from agricultural, transportable beehives, to respirator components recently with Ford. Additionally, we have material handling products for all of the main OEMs here local and around the country, and a lot of heavy truck interior components. Myself, I'm a Ferris grad from the plastics program in the late 90s, and I've come from a long line of exterior lighting products to Saline, Michigan. Thank you, Brennan.
Thank you, Jane. So glad you're here. Next, we have Missy Rogers. Missy is president at Noble Plastics. Missy, what should we know about Noble, and how long have you been president there?
Well, Noble Plastics is a small custom molder in South Louisiana. I've been president since our founding. In fact, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. My husband and I, the owners, are both degreed mechanical engineers from LSU. And Noble Plastics believes in making the product realization process pleasant and profitable. And we do that through 3 business streams: product design, manufacturing services, and automation of those manufacturing services. We tend to serve tight tolerance engineered resin, defense, and industrial customers. And we're really honored to be recognized. Thank you so much, Brennan.
Yeah, thank you. Go Tigers. All right, last but not least, Tamsin Etoufa. Tamsin is principal consultant at Tamiset LLC. Tamsin, tell us about you and your experience in the plastics industry.
Thanks. I am one of the founders of Envision Plastics, a high-grade, high-density recycler of HDPE. I got my start at I would say back in the late 1980s, after graduating at Texas A&M, I started a curbside voluntary program to build a playground. In trying to do that, I raised money in curbside recycling, and plastics was my nemesis because I couldn't find a home for it. I tried to ban it. And thankfully, I had a father who was a professor at SMU and read my newsletters and said, banning isn't the solution. Find a way to get it recycled. And so that landed me a job working at Phillips, purchasing plastics for their recycling plant in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And then later I went on to KW Plastics Recycling, who became one of the largest plastics recycling companies in the world. And then to Envision Plastics as one of the founders. And so impatient as I am, I've wanted to keep on growing plastics recycling and wanted to do the next big thing, and polypropylene is it. So I left Envision Plastics in June and started Tamsinet LLC to expand plastics recycling. And I think you've heard a lot of energy around polypropylene here lately, and I hope to think that I have something to do with that and would love to talk about that a little bit more later on. So back to you, Brennan.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Welcome, welcome to all four of our panelists. To our audience out there, our panel is eager to hear from you. You're welcome to submit questions at any time. To do so, email those questions to pnevents@crane.com. And I know many of you are watching on social media, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, send your questions through those platforms if you're watching there. All right, panel. First question. Last year, when we gathered in Nashville, we held a similar panel discussion to this one, where we spoke to some of the class members of inductees. Now, when we looked back at the feedback from that session, our audience told us they wanted to hear the story of our panelists. So let's try and rectify what we did wrong last year. I'm going to ask each of you to tell us your story. For example, was there a turning point in your career when you felt you made it? Was there one thing that propelled your career? In short, how did you get to where you are today? Don, you teased a little bit of this in your introduction. Let's start with you, though. What's your story?
Well, Brennan, I started here at PCPI right out of high school, working on the production floor on second shift, and worked here during some college breaks, and was able to work one summer for the office manager who was out on medical leave. And when I left college, they asked me to come here full-time, and I started full-time in 1985 and was able to finish my bachelor's degree through our tuition reimbursement program, and had very good mentors in the previous owner and the current owner that really encouraged me along the way to finish my degree. And it's just been a joy over the last 35 years. I met my husband here, have formed long-term friendships here. And I'm honored to say that out of 6 of our management group, 5 of them are women. And so every one of those has come from the production floor. So we're very strong on mentoring our people and bringing them up through the ranks. And it's just, like I said, it's been a joy. I'm 5 minutes from home and have been the whole time I've worked here. And it's been more of a family than it is a job. And we do a lot of exciting things. And I'm looking forward to at least another 5, maybe 10 years here.
That's really cool. Oh my gosh, a 5-minute commute. I
Yes.
dreamed about that. That's amazing. I drive an hour each way when
Oh,
things
wow.
are normal. So amazing. Jane, what's the career story of Jane?
Back in, let's say, about 97, 98, I was a program manager, and I had a customer. Actually, it's not one single point in time for me, but it was one customer who pushed me through my career so far. There's one GM gentleman who asked me to move down to Mexico and launch all of their products, which included the Silverado and some of the earlier large truck products. I ended up moving to Mexico, which led to the next opportunity of taking over the facility and expanding it, doubling the size. That same customer recommended that I move to a competitor for a next opportunity. Again, another exterior lighting. Once moving there, we tripled the size of that location and grew into other customers as well. Finally, it became time to move home, and he recommended a couple of different facilities to come into. So this one gentleman has really pushed me through my career and helped me to see that I can go much further, quicker. And he has always been a supporting factor in my life.
Yeah. Sounds like you've had a mentor. We've been talking about mentors and mentees throughout this week.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Missy, what about you? You teased as well the story of yourself and Noble, but tell us a little bit more detail.
So when I finished LSU, pretty typical for this part of the country, I went into the refining business for one of the major oil producers. And that led into a consulting engineering role, doing forensic studies, risk management, and the approximation of damages, as well as instrumentation and special simulations to prevent and predict those sorts of failures. When my husband's job moved from Baton Rouge to Lafayette, of course, I came with him. And through the course of finding my way in this new town, really, it was concurrent with him developing a new process in plastics that he was having difficulty finding a manufacturer for. He wanted to do very non-traditional things and wasn't finding a lot of doors open to him. And so he said, why don't we just start our own company? Wow. Unfortunately, when Noble opened its doors, neither one of us had ever pressed a button on an injection mold machine. And so we very, very early learned that we had jumped in with both feet. But it's really, plastics is a playground for mechanical engineers. There's thermal sciences, material sciences, modeling, simulation, assemblies. And so it's been a natural outgrowth from a mechanical engineering perspective, but my path into plastics was somewhat random.
Yeah, right. That's kind of amazing. You hear stories like that throughout the industry, but yeah, young and foolish were you? Do you think?
A little, confident maybe.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. All right, Tamsin, you've talked a little bit about your sounded a little bit like a community organizer of sorts, really recycling advocate. Tell us more about you.
Yeah, well, so for 4 years, I didn't get paid a dime, right, to do volunteer work, but it turned into a career, and it's been such a career and so much fun and not a day of work, really, because I've enjoyed almost everything I've done. And I've had great mentors along the way, from Dave Cornell, who's a Hall of Fame, Plastics Hall of Fame, who's taught me so much about the polymers as the technical manager for so many years at the APR. I've been very blessed. If you think about 1988 to now, plastics recycling, really, it's the infancy. So, you know, when I was at Texas A&M, or really if you go to any college other than Michigan State, and, you know, there's polymer chemistry, polymer engineering, all that stuff, but really, is there plastics recycling that you can go get a degree in? No, I've lived it, and that's the degree. And I was blessed to be really part of it from the beginning, and so many people who are willing to give me lessons along the way. So entrepreneurs like Kenny Campbell, the K and KNW, and like I said, Dave Cornell, Doug McClendon, who worked in the lab at KNW, and then Masood, Rod, and Param Yaditsian, who were my partners at Envision and allowed me to spend my 401k and come into Envision and give me the opportunity to make some money along the way and make it so I could start a business again. So, you know, so many people and, you know, just myself having tenacity. And so I would just tell people, if you're willing to put in the sweat hours and the sweat equity and work and the tenacity to do that, you know, complacency is your worst enemy. I've always said that saying. And so if you're willing to put in the work, you're going to get rewarded for it. And, you know, of course, if you love it, it's not work. And so I've been very lucky, and work has been my school, even though I did go to school. I just didn't study plastics recycling. So there you go.
Well, that's interesting. We were when was it? At noon today, we were talking to a human resources director, and we were talking about different topics of men as allies in the industry. And it sure sounds like Tamsin, you
had a lot.
Yeah, indeed.
Been lucky.
Yeah. Well, panel, let's move to a very broad category of 2020. We can all take a sigh when we think about this year. But, thinking about the year personally and professionally, it certainly has taught me a lot. But that is my question for you. What has 2020 taught you about the world in which we work? Jane, you want to tackle this one first for us?
Ooh, this one's one of my favorite topics. Face-to-face interaction is the most valuable thing that was taken away this year.
Yeah.
I always believed when I went down to Mexico, if you're face-to-face with everyone, everybody works together better. When this luxury was taken away from us this year, the people who were working on site took on a lot more responsibility in order to compensate for those who were out working remotely. So we're a really hands-on operation. So you need to go see like Gemba to see what's going on the floor in order to make decisions. So what it's taught me is we need to find a way to keep everybody together, working together, face to face, if at all possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this industry is so much of the industry was deemed essential. So many people had that luxury of being in person. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Missy, what about you? What has 2020 taught you about our world of work?
Well, like Jane, of course, I would say the biggest challenge has been that we've not been able to have direct, frequent communication with each other. Although as an essential manufacturer, our staff has been working through the duration of this event. The big key for us was really communicate and over communicate. Even among a team that's healthy, even among a culture that shares a lot of collaboration and contact, I reminded my leadership team to over communicate, to not just say something once and believe it would sink in, because we had to remember how much other noise is going on right now between what's on a television or radio or fear, and that fear can amplify things. Yeah. And so much of what our communications this year have been are not novel or groundbreaking so much as they're consistent, they're pervasive, and they're frequent. Mm-hmm. Remind people what we do is important. There are people, customers, and our families counting on us. Let's keep focus on what we do. Let's try not to get distracted. We know there are things going on in our community. Mm-hmm. We've had family members who have worried about their health. We're all having to deal with parents or grandparents in situations. But one thing that we know that we can help our families by doing is to continue to produce what we do. Mm-hmm. And to remember that those things, although they're important, have to be integrated with family concerns, and that if one of us has to be out on either quarantine or taking care of their family on quarantine, that's what teams do, is we help cover for each other.
Right. Yeah. I think what I'm taking away from what you're saying, Missy, too, is the stress of this year is not to be something that's disregarded. It's taking a toll on our team members.
It is.
For sure. Tamsin, what about you? What's 2020 about you?
Well, first it would be the communications part. When you work for a big corporation, everyone has their different webinar format. It might have been Skype or WebEx or Cisco or Uber, Blue Jeans. I can't begin to name. So when you're a consultant, you use whatever client's meeting system is. So I have so many icons on my computer, I can't begin to tell you what I've had to learn. And they don't always interact with each other. Sometimes when you've just been on Zoom, going to WebEx, it just takes I always say plan an extra 5 minutes ahead of time. So that's taught me something, that technology doesn't always cooperate with each other. And yes, with the 2020 and the COVID, oh my gosh. So you all on this panel know I have a husband with COVID and I have a father with dementia that I took in because I didn't want him in a home because of the COVID. And now with my husband here with COVID, and my father has pneumonia, and trying to keep them in the same house without catching each other's diseases, because my husband can't catch the pneumonia and my dad can't catch the COVID. So it's quite challenging to do the work and do all that stuff. So, but you know what? I'm a woman, and we all know on this panel, when you're a high power woman, you just learn to deal with whatever gets thrown at you. So I'm dealing with it just fine. 2020, just come on and hit me with your best shot.
Wow. That's you have the admiration of everyone on this.
But my eyes are bloodshot for a reason. I didn't get much sleep last night.
Okay.
They challenged me.
Yeah. Well, we're wishing your father and your husband.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pray.
Yes.
Prayer is important.
Indeed. Dawn, 2020 has been a teacher for you as well?
It has in some respects, but I've had this conversation with several people. We've been pretty much insulated because, again, we're considered an essential business, so we've never missed time at all. And knock on wood, we have not had anybody sick here, or as far as I know, anybody's family member sick. And being where we are in Ohio, we're one of the safer counties in Ohio, although our numbers are growing. But like all of you have said, communication has been somewhat of a challenge. Again, we've learned a lot about all of the technology out there. And when this all first happened, we decided that, yes, we had some people that could work from home, but we felt like that would be a detriment. We work so well in collaboration between the management group and the supervisory staff and the production floor. We just felt that wasn't going to be productive for us. So everyone's been in the building since day one, and we've learned, a lot of different things dealing with our customers, because a lot of our customers, they're working from home. So it's a matter of managing that communication and keeping it all the balls up in the air at the same time. It's been challenging, and but like you've all said, you do what you have to do.
Right. Yeah, that's the truth. Well, so let's stick on this communication topic. We all know how difficult it can be during this time, during the pandemic. Any tips or takeaways that you or your teams have uncovered that might benefit the rest of our audience about communication? Missy, let's start with you.
I was able to do something very early on that I've shared with a few people, and I believe it has inspired maybe another way of thinking about it. And that was recognizing how much conversation and contact we were having with our coworkers, because we continued to work through. What we were really concerned about managing their stress and their situation was the connection to the family. And so one of the things that I was able to do about a month in was send a bunch of prepackaged meals to everyone's home with a little note to their family saying, listen, we're all going through this together. You're probably getting a little bit stir crazy and a little bit tired of your own cooking. So we appreciate you supporting your worker here at Noble Plastics. We want to support you at home with just a little bit of a break, a little bit of change of pace for you and your family.
Wow, that's such a kind idea. Yeah, I've heard of larger companies. I'm thinking of one of the automakers that I know of in the Detroit area where I am, did something similar to that, but that was more about masks and sanitizing gel. That's a really cool idea. That's
well, great. I am in South Louisiana, and food is definitely one of the top three. So,
right. Well, before we go, let me give you my home address.
I'll make you gumbo.
Oh my God. Okay, sounds great. Tamsin, any thoughts on this?
Boy, that's a tough one, since I'm kind of a solo act here in my little world right now going on. I guess, what I would say and give advice and all that stuff and experience is I would just bring up the fact of what I see that's kind of missing in today's world, and something that we miss that would be something to take forward is accountability, especially after this presidential election, right? And kind of, if we go back a few presidents, and when we look at leadership And, I think it's the biggest thing or gift we can give somebody as a leader is showing when we make a mistake and giving the fact that we did make the mistake and taking accountability for it and giving that as a gift to our employees. That we make mistakes and we own them, right?
Right.
And it's easy to do under these stressful times, in particularly. When we're in these stressful conditions, we're going to make even more mistakes because it's hard to tell what we should do. Should we let everybody work from home or should we bring them in? And that could lead to some mistakes. And so I would just say that as a check mark of something that we might want to do as a leader, woman or man.
Sure. Yeah. And then maybe as a leader, be more forgiving of those, that we're managing who do make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. Even as a parent, right? It's the failures we learn from the most, right?
Right.
Sometimes we got to let our people fail.
Yeah, indeed. Dawn, any thoughts on anything from, communication takeaways you or your team have uncovered?
I think the most important thing that we found is just to keep that communication line open between, our HR department and our people, that if they were concerned about, I don't feel well, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose my job? And, keeping them updated on all of the government, the Families First Act and the CARES Act and everything that they needed to know, making sure that they had the PPE that they needed, the hand sanitizer, and just letting them know that we're there to support them regardless. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they keep their job and that they're safe. And I think as long as you keep that communication open, they're going to be more than grateful and more than willing to help you do whatever. And their response has just been great. It's very refreshing to see that we can still move on. And the other thing that we share with them is, yes, it's been difficult financially for us through this, as sales being down. Mm-hmm. And you just need to reassure them that, hey, we're still here, we're sound, we're going to be around a long time. Your job is good, and quell that anxiety, because I know there's a lot of anxiety out there in the world, but we want to make sure that their anxiety here is as less as can be.
Yeah, that's nice. Sounds like you have a real family atmosphere there.
Yes, we try.
Yeah, great. Jane, you want to bring us home on this topic? Any thoughts?
Along the same common thread here, communication, obviously, and of course we prefer face-to-face, but when people are remoting in and calling into meetings, it's important to involve everyone and making sure that everyone remains engaged so that the entire team feels that they have input into what's going on.
Yeah, right. Well, Tamsin, you brought up something a bit ago. The question, working women often bear an unfair burden at home. Have employers, or have you as a leader, made accommodations that allow employees to help care for family members during COVID? Tamsin, I know that's maybe unfair for you as a consultant, but have you been able to witness anything with the companies you work with?
Oh, now, absolutely. I've seen some amazing things amongst the people that I work with in this space, women and men, right?
Yeah.
So my daughter-in-law's a doctor, and she runs a group of pediatricians, and they've done an amazing where they're taking turns so that none of them are working more than 2 days at a time, and they're healthcare professionals, and so they're definitely the people on the front line, and none of them have caught the COVID, but they've been taking care of the COVID children. Mm-hmm. And, it's been a great comfort for me having somebody with COVID, because my husband walked through my bedroom. He's not staying with me, and took a shower in our bathroom. And I was like, can I ever go into my bathroom again? Is it contaminated and everything? But anyway, just watching how with the office staff, I've watched a lot of other doctors that I've been going to. They're using the nurse practitioners, seeing all the sick patients, and they're not seeing anyone except for remotely, versus my daughter-in-law is doing this, just changing. And then what they do is after 2 days, they go out and get COVID tested. They make sure they're negative. They get some time off. They're with their family. They're homeschooling their kids because no one's going to school. And then they go back to work again. So everybody's getting to be with their kids, then also taking care of the sick. And yet, just like I've heard Jane with not having COVID cases and all that stuff and still going to work, I just think it's wonderful. They've got a system, they've put it in place, they've implemented it, and they're not putting, I would say, less higher up people being the ones responsible for facing the danger, right?
Yeah.
And so I would look at that as an example, and that's nothing to do with my work, but it's just something I'm witnessing. And she works with the lower income people, so she's seen a lot more COVID fit patients. And so I just look at that and I go, wow, there's another woman. If they had a woman breaking the medical field, I would, nominate her.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds worthy of it.
Yeah. So I've seen it, just not in the plastics field so much.
Yeah, sure. Dawn, is your company doing anything, making any accommodations for family members, for employees, I should say?
We do what we have had to do. Like I said, we've been very, very lucky. We haven't had anyone be tested positive for COVID or have family members that are ill. And we just tried to make sure that our employees knew that, especially when the schools were closed early on, that if they had young children, we would do what we needed to do. We adjusted some schedules throughout the summer, and we were able to work like 4 10-hour shifts, and so then they got Fridays off, so they had that extra day with their families over the summertime. It kind of gave everybody a breather and just that extra day away from each other. But again, like I said, we have been extremely lucky that we have not had to face anything like that, and we've always made sure that if someone has a need, that we have good connections with our local United Way, that we know the agencies that can help them. And so we just try to maintain a calm for everybody and give people breaks when they need it.
Yeah, that's great. Jane, what about you? Anything special going on there at MMI accommodation-wise?
So we've had to make accommodations. Every person seems to be just a little bit different.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that we've started doing is allowing part-time work. Previously, we did not allow it, and it did present quite a few challenges as we started, and it continues. But the part-time work allows the working parents or the parents that can't keep the kids at daycare if the daycares don't stay open. So it allows them to come into work as they can, and we work together with them in order to understand what their schedules need to be, and we work through it.
Yeah, I think that childcare issue has really reared its head this year. Whether it's just everything's changing. I mean, we saw, I saw New York City is going to virtual. They just made that announcement, so
Yesterday.
We're all dealing with that. Yeah, right. Missy, how about at Noble? Anything to add to the discussion?
Not a lot of changes directly to the staff. Much like Jane and Dawn, we've been really fortunate in that there's not been a real direct impact to any significant degree. And we didn't have to do an extraordinary modification to the work environment. We did lose our cleaning crew. It's one of those things that Special Olympics has always been our charity of choice. And so we had a team of cleaners from the local ARC Association who, as soon as the government suspended all non-essential operations, they couldn't work and they couldn't come in. So that first week or so, we were all sanitizing our own areas. I think I must have bought out the entire area's Clorox wipes. But we were able to get Janet King in and doing things. We didn't have to do a lot of workplace rearranging. Our people are fairly spread out in their work, and we use automation in enough of the locations that we didn't have people working side by side in any kind of a assembly line. But I know a tremendous number of people in the industry that had to physically distance their people, had to stagger shifts and do different entryways through their buildings and different access to different common areas. We were too small to have those concerns, but I think mostly people were comforted that we were taking it seriously, that we cared about their health, and that we were making what accommodations we could, just visibly for them as well.
Yeah, yeah. Makes people feel taken care of.
Mhm.
Well, a reminder to our audience, if you have any questions for our panel, send those questions to pnevents@crane.com or submit them through the social media platforms you're watching on. All right, panel, let's switch to a different topic, your career. So we'll start with Jane on this one because I know the answer is yes to this. Have you ever moved for a job? When, and then, putting on, maybe your HR hat, when do you move for a job? What circumstances would you recommend? So Jane, what do you think?
So when I made the move from the Tennessee operation to here at MMI, it became a real easy decision when my successor was ready to take over the operation in Tennessee. And I was already looking for a new challenge at that point. I was ready. I needed a little bit something to keep me going. Moving myself back to Michigan was high on my list of priorities since I had been traveling 100% since the late 90s. But certainly the opportunity that became available in Michigan and that my successor was ready made it an easy decision.
Okay, yeah. And that sounds so tiring. You were on the move for years, it sounds like.
It seems like every Friday I want to go to the airport.
Yeah, the COVID, it must be a real shock for you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, well, Don, you're at the other extreme. I've been at the same company for 35 years, but you manage people. There's not a whole lot of upward mobility at your company. When you have people who, want a raise or want a promotion, maybe there's not room for that all the time. How do you counsel people on that next step in their career?
Well, Brendan, that's really that's a good topic because it's a question that we talk about a lot. Is that because all of our management team came from the shop floor and moved up through the ranks, and we're all in our early 50s, mid 50s. So we talk about that. What's our bench? Who's going to be the next person? Who's going to be the next Dawn or the next HR manager?
Yeah.
So that's a challenge for us because you're right there. Because we're small, there's not a lot of room for upward mobility here, and I've just been fortunate to maybe be the last one left. I don't know the longest one or the one that stuck it out the longest. I don't know, but we look for those people to mentor, and we have some people that when I'm ready to step out, I know there's people that are ready to step in, and the owner of our company is very cognizant of that, and he has always done that. He says, I'm going to be here a while, but he wants to leave it as the people that are working now to move on up into those better positions, and it's just a matter of finding that person that has that same passion that you do, that can really kind of step into those roles. And it's a struggle when you're a small company and basically out in the middle of a rural area. There's no big town close, so it can be challenging, but that's what's fun, is to see someone that used to work on the shop floor who is now in charge of 15 people and orders material and schedules the shop floor. It's very rewarding when you see that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you are developing a bench there. That's great.
We hope to. Yes.
Awesome. Missy, what do you think?
Oh, I agree with Dawn completely. At a small plant, it's not that there's such a employment population or turnover that there's always a slot to move up into. But if you think about your value to the company and how many tools you put in your belt, there's always those who, if they get a little edgy in one position, you cross-train them, you challenge them for what more can you do. And if it's a safe environment in which you can try and see if you're good at something you've never thought of, again, much like Dawn, a small company in a rural location, we have a pretty young staff, often they're students, and how would you know whether you could be a good processor or not? How could you know if you could be an automation technician? Go shadow somebody that's programming a robot. You may take to it very, very well. And so I think that openness to not just bring all your talents to bear to the workplace, but for the workplace to be a safe place to learn and try other things, that's how you give them the most value within their own toolkit that can share with the company.
Yeah, that shadowing idea is a great one. And yeah, I think so often as young people, you think you need to know everything about the job you're stepping into. And really, as managers, we don't expect people to know that.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Tamsin, you've certainly moved.
Three times.
How did you know when to spend your entire 401k, you crazy person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pay a pretty big tax burden when you do stuff like that. Well, so, there's this human action model that's been written by this Ludwig von Mises, and that's not why I did it. But Envision talks about that, and we look at employees and we want to make sure that they're not dissatisfied with the present state of affairs. So, there's three things that will cause somebody to move. They're dissatisfied, they vision a better place, and they believe they can reach a better state. And those three things, if they all come together, there's this belief that people will leave. And maybe that happened to me this year and I left Envision. I don't know. But for me, if I feel like I can advance where I'm currently at, and the only way I can advance is to move. And that happens to women a lot. A lot of times there's places within an organization, you're going to go as far as you're going to go because you are a woman, or because of it's a family situation and just different circumstances. And so sometimes you have to leave to be able to advance. And that's why you leave. And so I do often tell people, if you can't advance where you're currently at, maybe that's why you have to leave. But I do think somebody should voice that to the company they're at and give the opportunity to the company, coming from ownership and valuing the employees. Quite often it's just not knowing, right? And I love hearing two of you say that challenging the employees and cross-training them and things like that. I think that's wonderful, because quite frankly, boredom can cause people to leave, right? Because if they're not excited in their job, they're going to get fidgety and want to leave. So I think that was a wonderful suggestion.
Yeah. And I think, Tamsin, you hit on something that our HR professional said today. Don't just leave, but if you want a better job or a greater challenge,
talk about it.
To the supervisor. Yeah, it's not just going to be anointed on you.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So this was another question that was hit upon in our survey last year after our event. So it's a very simple question. So what I love about this event is we have people at the beginning of their career, the middle of the career, and then we have more senior people. So last year there was some questions for people new in the industry. They wanted some tips. So for women new to the plastics industry, what tips would you offer them? So Dawn, would you mind starting us off?
I've worked for the plastic industry, but not really. They don't let me out on the shop floor. They don't want me out there. But I think just learn as much as you can. And even if you're not going to push the buttons, learn why, learn about costing and what goes into the product, and learn about your customers and what they need. And, are there other things that we can do for them? Learn about your company and learn about the people that work there. Make those connections and, just really immerse yourself in the culture of the company and rely on your peers and collaborate and talk things out. I think that's the biggest thing that we've done here over the years is if we have a problem, we sit down around the table and we talk it out till we get a good solution. It may not always be the best solution and we may turn around and change it again, but get the people in the room that know this, know this stuff. I don't know about, the computers at all, but I've got somebody I can go to. I don't, I've done HR, but that's not what I do now, but I have an HR person that does very well. Get your people that know in the room with you, and just learn as much as you can. And I think I mentioned this maybe a couple times earlier. Train your replacement. And I've always told everybody, this is our end result. This is what we want. I don't care how you get there as long as it's legal and safe. But, make it your own. Make it your own project. Make it your own job. And if you have a problem, and this is what my boss did to me, if you have a problem, come to me with the problem, but come to me with the solution, or at least, some ideas on the solution. That's how you learn. And that's how, and again, I think, I don't this. So we're not going to fire you for making a mistake. If you're trying, you might have to try 3 things before you get the right thing. But I think as long as you listen to each other and communicate, that is, to me, is the best thing. And just learn everything you can.
Yeah. I think that lesson of coming with a solution is one of the first really good lessons that a young person can learn in their career. Missy, what about you? What advice do you have for people maybe 0 to 5 years in the plastics industry?
Well, I would completely echo what Dawn said, is learn, just even if you are not good at something or you don't like a particular role, you will learn that by trying it. And so many more doors can open up for you. And my engineering manager, who's an incredibly smart and capable woman, simplified it by saying, to be successful, make your boss's life easy. And so you really are learning, not just is the experienced person looking to train someone to replace them, but the junior person needs to be looking for ways that they can recognize how to bring value and learning and judgment that's appropriate to the next level to show that they're ready for it. So I think they can step up into that. Well, where are your pain points, or what are the things that seem to take a lot of time? Let me see if I can make those better or lighten that burden. And it really opens up the eyes of management to who's wanting to do more.
Yeah, that's true. Tamsin, any advice out there for people new to the plastics industry?
Well, you only get a no if you don't ask. So it's good to ask. Make sure that though when you do go ask for something like a raise, that you have justification for it. Having a new car and you can't afford the payment is not justification for it. So make sure you have a good justification for it. So that's something I certainly have seen with my young children who now are out in the working field. So make sure you have that. But I loved all the inquisitive learning and making the boss's job easier. I love all that stuff. I hope all the people listening take that kind of advice. Oh my gosh. It's a gem, a diamond in the rough when you find those people. And hopefully we as management encourage that kind of activity when that happens. But boy, it frustrated me to no end. We're in plastics when the people who work don't even understand the plastic that you make, right? Yeah. And so it's very important that you do learn about the products that you make or the customers that you have and the economics around it, because all those things go hand in hand. So I think all that's important. I think it's kind of silly to be working in a company and just learning that you push this button. You're not going to go very far. So I think all that's important. So, but the other thing I have to say, and this is something that us women get criticized for, and sometimes we're guilty of, but sometimes we get wrapped up into gossip, and I think that's very important not to become part of. And it's certainly takes away from work. And so I would highly suggest to not get involved in that kind of activity.
Yeah.
So since I didn't hear anyone talk about that.
Sure. Right. All right, Jane, you have been on your shop floor. Any advice for all those? I'm sure you're asked questions by your young staff. Do you have any advice for women who are new to plastics?
Maintaining a sense of urgency and working hard, not being afraid to dig in and get dirty if you need to. The people who have grown up in this operation are the ones who constantly are saying, show me more, teach me more. How can I learn more? How can I move up? The people who are constantly asking are the ones that want it and the ones who are willing to work hard in order to get it. So we've had some great success stories in the building here with exactly that attitude, and that sense of urgency has proven great employees as they move up as well.
Yeah, I remember you introducing me to someone who hadn't been there very long, but had taken some real big steps in the time he was there.
Yep.
So Tamsin hit on this. Asking for a raise or promotion can take some guts. How do you do that tactfully? Missy, let's start with you. You're the company president. How do people ask you for more money or a new title? How's that conversation go in your head? The good ones, anyway.
Well, titles are pretty cheap, and so I would caution people not to settle for a title. You need to show the company your value, whether it's you bring ideas to the table, you follow through on other people's ideas, you build coalitions behind ideas. If you can demonstrate a meaningful way in which you advance the goals of the organization, it only makes sense for the organization to keep you. And so, much like Tamsin said, somebody telling me, hey, I need to make more money. I bought a car. My wife got a raise. I need a bigger house is not compelling. But when they say, hey, I've taken on 3 lean initiatives in the last year outside my job description. And the good news is we were able to save the company this money, or we were able to deliver this enhancement to this customer. That's exactly the kind of thing that should come to bear in negotiation, either of raises or bonuses or any kind of incentive, and certainly an opportunity to move into a position of higher responsibility. If you'll do the work, shine a light on it. Too often that may not be known at the highest levels, and there's nothing wrong, particularly for women, to recognize you got to toot your horn a little bit.
Yeah.
Other people are.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You're kind of reminding me when you said titles are cheap. I had a friend years ago who said, you can call me anything you want. I just want paid.
Yeah.
So,
That's right. That's right.
Tamsin, any thoughts on how to ask for a raise tactfully or a promotion for that matter?
Well, I mean, like I said, you only get a no if you don't ask. And so I always tell people to write down the pros and cons out. Be ready to debate why they might tell you you can't have one. But to defense of all the employees that have to go and talk, as managers, I always feel like you should have strategic plans for all your employees to be able to advance and things like that and have that ready. And in a yearly review, talk about how they can get there. But that's neither here nor there. But, so I just think it's good to have kind of a roadmap for employees. But when you don't have that for them, they should go in and maybe even talk about their own roadmap and go in and say, look, this is what I want out of this company, and this is what I've done so far. And this is what I think I've earned so far this year, and this is why. And hopefully they can get it. And if they don't, it doesn't mean they quit right now. I've always said you look a lot more attractive looking for a job when you have a job. Oh, yeah. I don't know why it is that way. So, again, don't be scared. It's so much easier to take your medicine and just get it over with.
Jane, what about you? How do you like to be approached?
Well, the key is being rational and calm. So the emotion that comes in with the comment about I have a car payment, obviously is very difficult as leadership to deal with. But coming in and being rational and calm and presenting the the bullet points of the accomplishments or the projects that we worked on that show value to the company is key. But just to expect something because you have an emotional reaction to something going on in your life, obviously doesn't come out positive generally.
Right. Don, what's it look like when someone comes knocking on your door? They close the door behind them. You're like, "Oh, here it comes."
That's the scariest thing always, when they close the door. We've been very fortunate. Our owner sees, potential in people, and in 35 years, I've never had to ask for a raise or a promotion. And again, being small, there's not a lot of room for that growth. But one of the things we ask our employees when they come up and say, "Hey, I'd like to make more money," or what, and our thing is, okay, how can we increase your value to the company and to our customers? And if we have someone that they're in an entry level job, that they're running an injection molding press, and we say, okay, do you want to cross train in quality, or do you want to cross train in shipping, or be a setup technician, or learn processing, and see where they want to fit and where they think their ideas are going to go. And maybe it's just a matter of, I'm comfortable where I'm at and I don't want to take on more responsibility. But we try to say, okay, but you've been in this job for, X amount of years. You have value.
Yeah.
And if you can help us with new employees that come in the door, whether it's training or mentoring them, that's more value to us. So we just try to find a spot where they want to go and encourage them and, tell them, we have confidence in you to do this job, and we want you to have confidence in yourself, and just keep reassuring them along the line that everybody here is important, and we'll fight for you. Our HR manager fights for everybody. And, I think it's just a matter of like everyone has said, come in and be calm and show us what you can do and what more you're willing to do.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Well, guys, the hour is flying by here. I'm going to ask you maybe to take a minute to answer our last question. And I guess it's really not even a question. Can you talk about a hurdle that you overcame in your work life? You may not think of yourself this way, but I know that especially our young folks out there really are looking up to you guys, and you guys have accomplished quite a bit. And so it's nice when people who have accomplished a lot, when you hear that it wasn't a slam dunk for them. So can you talk a little bit about a hurdle you overcame in your work life? Tamsin, do you mind starting us off?
A hurdle that I had to overcome in my work life. Oh my goodness. As a woman,
Yes, ma'am.
sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Yep. And, when the whole Me Too movement came out here a few years back, it almost made me cry with the strength and the resilience that those women must have had to do what they did. Because, what I did 20 years ago was just put it under the rug. Yeah. And go home and not talk about it with my husband because I would be afraid he'd go and kill somebody, right. And I did the whole thing like, oh, you silly person, just go away every day and come up with every different excuse I could think of every time I traveled with a certain person from work. So, pregnancy was a great way to get rid of problems. And so I have 4 children. So I could look at it as a blessing in some respects, that maybe I had more kids than I would have had if I hadn't been harassed. But, so I would say that was definitely a hurdle I had to overcome, and probably women still have to overcome today because, some people just don't understand.
Yeah. Right. Wow. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah.
Jane, what are your thoughts? A hurdle you overcame in your work life?
So really the only hurdles that come to mind for this topic is the ups and downs of the auto industry. Mm-hmm. Now COVID, and making some difficult decisions about who to cut and who to keep. Yeah. That's always the hardest decision that any manager has to take. Layoffs and schedule changes. Those have really been the most difficult things that I faced throughout my career. And it's invested a lot of time in trying to figure out the right strategy to make the right decision. And there's never a great decision for everybody. Someone's always left out in the end.
Yeah. Those are those are the most difficult decisions any manager has to face. So yeah, we can all relate to that. Dawn, what about you? What hurdles have you had to overcome in your work?
I kind of want to echo what Jane said. I think as women, you want to be very compassionate, and like I tell my husband, you can't save all the puppies, but you have a natural. You want to listen to people's problems. You want to do everything that you can to help them, but walking that line between financial and fiscal responsibility and the compassionate side is very difficult sometimes. And I think you have to realize and be honest with people. We have a business to run, and yes, we're responsible for 30 families here. And so I get your problem, but you need to come to work. And that's probably our biggest thing is finding people that want to work and be when someone doesn't show up, we can't run a press, and then a customer doesn't get their parts, and so on and so forth. So that finding as a woman of trying to be compassionate yet firm has been, I think, one of the biggest hurdles and learning opportunities that I found in 35 years.
Yeah, that's great. Misty, what about you? Any hurdles you've had to overcome? You've probably been a walk in the park.
Oh no, there's always a challenge, but much like the others have said, it's an opportunity to listen. It's an opportunity to find a solution that maybe isn't win-win for everybody, but if you can get all the information that you can and help them understand the information that made the decision. Much like Dawn just said, it's something where you say, I have 30 or 40 families that depend on me, and you're disrespecting your coworkers by not following the rules or by not showing up or being dependable. You're hurting the team, and my role is to protect the team. So it's I can't say that I view a hurdle as a competition, but it is an opportunity to listen and to help them listen or consider a view or a position that maybe they have not. They only see what's going on in their lives. They haven't thought about the impact it has to the rest of the team.
Right. Yeah, well said. Well, Missy, Tamsin, Jane, Dawn, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. And congratulations on your induction in our class of Women Breaking the Mold honorees. To those watching, if you want to reach out to any of our panelists, their email addresses should be there. They are on the screen now. We spoke to them beforehand. They're more than happy to speak with you and answer any questions you might have. So as I said at the top of the show, before we end today, I invite everyone to join in and watch the following video that celebrates all of this year's inductees. Congratulations to everyone in our 7th annual class of honorees. And special thanks to Plastics News Assistant Managing Editor Rhoda Meal for putting together this special tribute. Thanks for joining us this week. Fingers crossed we're all together in person next year for this event. Maybe Denver. That was our plan this year. Until next time, I'm Brendan Lafferty. Thank you for attending Women Breaking the Mold Networking Forum organized by Plastics News. Let's roll that video.